So here's my first signature, and we made some of the embellishments in the last video, and then off camera I've kind of put some ideas together onto each page, and so it lets me know what I want to do. And the first thing I want to do on the back side of this page here, I want to do some make a background and then maybe do either some stenciling or stamping or maybe both onto it. I have some ink pads that I bought from Michaels a long time ago. I'm going to see if these will even show up. They're very light, and then some of them, they don't feel like they're dried up, but I just don't know how much ink they really have in them. So far I'm not seeing the blue ink. So I just, mashing it in hard and just trying to see, and I'm just not really seeing it. So I might just have to scrap this blue one. So let me see what the green one will do. I'm not really seeing it. If it is there, it's very light to where I can't really see it. So I think I'm going to have to scrap this one too. Now the pink one, it's usually so light that you can barely see it, but I'm going to just try it. It is a really pretty color. It's a very light coral type color, kind of pink coral with a little like gold glitter in it, but it's very light and hard to see. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and, I'm going to just scrap those. I've got a little bit of this ink pad, and I'm going to just go around adding a little bit of this tan color to the background. So I'm going to go around this whole page with that before moving on to the next color. And what I do is, now this is a very light color, so I press my brush in there pretty good, and then start out lightly on the paper, and then start swirling it, and or you could go up and down. I typically just kind of go in a circle motion and start out lightly at first, especially if you have some really dark colors, which we will be getting into some more brighter colors that Tim Holtz has. Now this color here is Milled Lavender. This has been one of my favorites. And it makes for great background. It's a very light lavender color, and I really like it. And it's kind of a dulled color. It's not real bright, but it's not like a pastel. I just really like it. So, but it can get darker, and so I want to start off with a light application and then just kind of work my way around. And I just do that with each color as I go, and just less is more, and you can always build and make it darker, as you go. I feel like my background is starting to look like a Mardi Gras cake with the green and the purple and the yellow. But I'm going to keep going and then just add in maybe another color or two and then start some stenciling and stamping, and I think it'll all come together. So now I thought I would take some stencils, and using my blending brush, I would just dip it in the ink and then brush through the stencils. So I like this one here, and or you can just put the ink on top. And by putting some ink on top, I mean, I can just use it in different places and just keep brushing. And of course, you know, the more you do it, the lighter it gets, because the one on this one corner was a little bit darker and then the other one was just a tad bit lighter. But I really like this stencil. It's a Prima or Finnabair stencil, and you know, I really like using it. I like because it has different things that you can stencil. So now I thought I would add some gray, and I like this one here. I'm not exactly sure what it's supposed to be. It's kind of like the squares in burlap or something to that effect, but I really do like it. And I'm trying to make some parts a little darker and then kind of fade it out and just do, you know, varying light and darker areas. Just trying to create a really nice look and not have everything in your face. You know, have some darker parts and some lighter parts. Now, I absolutely love this ink. I have had it forever, and it has lasted. It's one of my longest lasting inks that I have had. Also, a black ink that I have. I mean, there are some really good inks out there that will last absolutely forever. You know, and then some ink pads, they won't even last a year, you know, or a few months at the most. And so some of these brands like that, you don't mind paying a little more because it's going to last forever. I mean, we're talking like 20 years. I've had the black ink and that green ink. And then I have another color, I think it's a terracotta. Is the same brand as that green one. I absolutely love it. And so I'm just kind of going back and forth, you know, with the stencil, and I just really like the look that it's giving. I want a really nice design, trying to not have just a plain page. I want a really nice design so that when you flip it open, you're like, oh wow, that's really nice. You know, so that's what I'm going for here. And then on this one, I thought I would use the orange color, or I think it's marigold maybe, to do the bubbles, what I call the bubbles or the polka dots. And it just adds a little pop, a little nice touch. Well, I've got this page done. As far as I'm concerned, it's done. I really like how it turned out. So I'm going to put it back in the book, or, you know, just kind of lay it back over there with the rest of the book. And then for this tea-dyed page, I want to do a different look because it's going to be right up next to the other page. So I thought for this one, I would just do some stamping. And I'm not going for any bold colors, just kind of want to keep it simple. Now on the back side of this page, I thought I would add a little pop of color with this pistachio ink. It's going to be on the other side, so you're not going to see it up next to the other page. And I just want to have a little pop of color here, and then just kind of mix it in with these other stamps of, of varying colors. I like for my stamping to be different colors, and then they all kind of coordinate and go together. And so I'm just taking this stamp and just kind of going around the different parts of the stamps that I've already, my stamped image that I've already made. And then I thought I would take it and just kind of go all around the pages and have little bits of words. And I'm using the end of the stamp too. On the side, it almost has like where it's ripped out of a loose leaf notebook, And I like that look, and I just kind of want to add some of that around the edges and throughout the page. So I have this page stamped, and now I'll move on to the next page. So I'll put this back in order. And I'm going to leave the watercolor paper off to the side. I did buy some ledger paper and graph paper, so you will get some of that in your junk journal box. And I'm going to tea dye it, or spritz it, spray it, and let it dry so it has kind of a distressed look. And then I'll fold it in half and put it in my journals later. So I had an idea of doing a flip out, and I'm going to sew it into the book, but I kind of wanted to give you an idea of how it's going to look. So I'll sew that. When you flip it out, it has a journaling card on it. So I'll show that to y'all as soon as I, sew that. When we're doing the final flip through of our signature, I'll show y'all the different things that I sewed so that you can see what it looks like. And so on this page, whenever you open it, it's blank. What I want to do is sew these pieces of paper, but then on the one I'll just sew on the side and the bottom, and then I'll do a flip out maybe with some washi tape with this journaling card. So I have an envelope, and I'm going to be doing a flip out with it. I thought I would glue down some of this napkin. I absolutely love this napkin. What's funny is that it matches the fabric that you're receiving in your kit this month. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of cut around it. Now you could go ahead and glue it down and then cut around it afterwards, and I've done that before too. To apply a thin, even layer of glue all over the envelope, I'm brushing the glue down. So I apologize for the camera shaking. I'm just really trying to get the glue evenly spread and get all the, the little lumps out where I squirted it on. And then I'm trying to line it up pretty good and go ahead, and as I'm spreading it, then pressing the napkin down so that way the top part with the glue doesn't dry by the time I get to the bottom with the glue. So that seems to work better. And I'm just, pressing it down, and I'll smooth it out a couple times with my hands just to make sure everything's flat. So I'm going to take some of this Tim Holtz paper, add some glue to it, and I'm going to glue it right on top of this napkin. And I'm just trying to dry off any or brush off any of the excess glue so it doesn't get, completely soggy. And I'm just going to press it on to the napkin, which, is on top of the envelope. And just press that down pretty good. And then I'll layer my next embellishments on top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the envelope flap because I want, I want it to be secure. I mean, you could paper clip it, or like there's different things that you could do, but I just want to glue it onto, the back side of the paper. And then what I'll do after that is take some of the patterned paper, which, it's kind of like a tissue paper, and I'm going to glue it over that. And I think I'll like the color and then the texture that brings. That'll just be kind of a neat look for it. So I sewed this, and this is what it looks like on both sides. And I thought I would just go ahead and glue the journaling card and the ephemera piece, onto it, because sewing it was just going to look a little goofy. So I thought I'd just go ahead and glue it. So I'm roughing up the edges. I just kind of want everything to be distressed, kind of old vintage looking. So that's what I'm going for. So I'm just lining this up. I don't want the journaling card from behind, to be sticking out. So I'm just trying to line everything up, figure out where I need to put the glue at. So I've got that glued down, and I've got a little bit of that white part, and I want to cover it up. So I'm trying to figure out, what pieces that I want to put down over it. And I want to make sure it lays flat. It's kind of, the glue didn't go all the way to the edge, so, it's kind of sticking up a little bit. So sometimes that happens. So I'm just trying to figure out what pieces I want to put. I think I'm going to go with a cardstock, or well, not really cardstock, but one of the paper ephemera pieces, and then I think I'll layer a vellum piece on top. I like this big seashell. It'll cover up most of the area. And since we already have a shell up there with the little girl in it, I thought this would be something nice to do, just kind of help it flow good. So I'm going to glue that down and then figure out which vellum piece I want to glue down next. For my vellum piece, I don't want to add too much glue because it wrinkles up. The vellum does, so I just want to add a little bit of glue as I need it. And if there's any part on the edges that are sticking up, then I can just add that and then wipe away the excess with a paper towel. So I sewed both of these pieces. I ended up deciding to make them a pocket. So it's kind of like a layered pocket. You got the one in the back and then the other one. And then this piece, I'm going to go ahead and add the washi tape and have it like a flip out in case if you want to do some journaling or add a picture behind it. That's kind of, the motive behind that in case if I want to do that later. So on the other side, I thought I would do some stamping. So I'm laying out my colors with the stamps, and I'm just basically going to be using these 4 stamps throughout my journal because you received 4 stamps in your junk journal box, and I just want to go along as if I received a box and stick with that. I might add a few other different pieces here and there, like little strips of lace, things like that. But for the most part, I want to stick to items that are received in the box. So I like to do my stamping with different colors. And this is actually the wrong color. I meant to get the milled lavender. I don't want something so bold. And I do like the subdued color of the milled lavender. It's not, in your face, and I'm kind of wanting it as more of like a background color, and I want the orange to pop. So So I think I'm going to go with these little fern leaves and put that at the bottom. And then on the back side, I think I'll go ahead and do some stamping as well on the page that doesn't have the stitching. The one with the stitching, I like that look, and I just want to keep it how it is. And so I'll just do a little bit of some stamping on this page. And I'm going to try to do some layering and have some of the stamps kind of fade out a little bit. Usually how I do this is when I've already used a stamp, there's still a little bit of ink on it, and then I like to stamp again, and that kind of gives it more of a middle ground or background look, and then your darker stamps is your foreground. So I really like how this turned out. It did what I wanted it to do. So I'm done with that one. I'm going to just sit that off to the side and move on to the next. So I thought on this was a piece that I had made a while back, and I thought that I would just go ahead and glue it down. This was one that I had ran through my Big Shot with a die cut, and so just thought it's pretty, it's like foliage, so I wanted to just go ahead and glue that down. And I only added little drops of glue, and then any extra glue I'm just dabbing with my napkin here. And then this page, I already stitched it down, and it's a great tuck spot. You just tuck something right in it. So I've got this blank page here, and I thought I would go ahead and do some stenciling and stamping. But first I wanted to use this wheat colored ink pad and just blend it all over the page. That way, it's bright white, and I want it to be more of a cream colored. And so I'm just gonna keep blending all the way around. And I like to do a circular motion, and I usually start off light, because you know how when you first spread it in the ink pad and then put it on the paper, it could be darker, and I don't want to have a bunch of dark spots showing where I started blending it at. So I'm working with a light cover first, and then I'll come back if there's certain parts that I want to maybe press it a little harder onto, just to have more of a distressed look. So I'm going to start off with these numbers, and just gonna, kind of swirl my brush around in the ink pad and then press down on here. And what I'm wanting to do is, in that part where the numbers are, I want to press a little harder in the middle, and then not as hard on the rest of the numbers, so that you've got a darker part in the middle and then it kind of fades out. So that's what I'm going for with that. And now I'm going to do this checkered look here or I guess you could say, to me it kind of looks like burlap or some kind of a texture. So I'm going to add that around the numbers. Basically when I'm stamping, I'll start with one image that I've stamped and then kind of work around it and make, kind of make it spread. And then also, we're doing a little bit of a bigger space, roughly, 5.5 inches tall by, 11 inches, something like that. And so you'll see me do a lot of repetition. It takes the guesswork out of it. So if I do one thing in one corner, then I'm going to do it in the opposite corner. And, and then go ahead and do it in the center as well. It makes for a great background. And like I said, it takes the guesswork out, so you're not thinking, okay, what should I do next? What should I stamp on here or stencil on here? When you come upon a blank page, sometimes it's best to just attack it and go with your first thought and don't second guess yourself. You'll always learn as you go, and you'll keep it fun in the process. You will enjoy the journey of junk journaling. So I've got that done. I'm going to put it back in the book. And it looks like I did it upside down. I spent all that time stamping and stenciling, and it's upside down. So the next decision is, do I keep it in my journal or not? I'm going to make that decision later. For now, I want to make an envelope. And so I'm just taking some of the ledger paper. I actually coffee stained this. I took a coffee filter that was in my coffee pot and just started pressing it down all around the paper, and it really just gave a nice look. I absolutely love it. I did it on both of the ledger papers and also on both sheets of the graph paper. So now I'm going to do some collaging on this. I've got a little bit of some vintage pattern paper, and then I've also got a piece of napkin. And so I'm just going to work on gluing this, figuring out how I like it as I'm gluing it down. Some places I might kind of scrunch up, I might reposition, and just to get it to where I like it. And I'm not wanting to make it completely soggy. You can sometimes, with collaging, decoupaging, you can add a lot of glue and it takes forever to dry. And you usually have to get your heat gun or your hair dryer, or sit it outside in the sun. And so I'm trying to put the least amount of glue as possible so that it dries quicker and I can move on to the next step of stamping. So I had some leftover Tim Holtz paper, and I wanted to take one of these journaling cards from it and cut this image out. I really like the look of it, an old piece of paper with some writing on it. So I'm just distressing around the edges, and then I'll glue that down on top of the tissue paper or the vintage pattern paper. So now I'm going to apply some stamping. My envelope is mostly dry, and I'm going to start on the parts that are more dry, that way to give maybe some of the wetter parts a chance to dry a little more before I ink them down. You could just stamp right on it if you are using alcohol ink, not a water-based ink. Then it's, if you're using water-based, it will run, but if you're not, and most of my inks are alcohol-based, so they're not water-based, and I don't have to worry about them running, so that's a good thing. So now I'm going to make the flap, and so I'm just measuring it, cutting it, I'm just kind of doing this on the fly. You could go ahead and, get out a paper cutter and measure everything and cut everything precisely. Sometimes I just like to dig right in and not have to be so precise and measure everything exactly. That's just funner to me. So anyway, so that's basically what I'm doing here, is just trying to get the right measurement, the right look I'm going for, and then I'll glue it down. So I've got the envelope done. I'm making it where it will fold out. So I'm going to tuck this part in. And then that's the back, and then you open it up. And that's what it looks like. And I'm just going to leave it blank. I really like the ledger look. I don't want to cover all of that up. And I think I'm just going to tuck it right into here. And I think that's going to look really good, you know, kind of peeking behind that paper. So now I'm going to take this card. I sewed a little pocket in it, but I want to cover up some of the white space. So I'm going to add some glue and add this piece of, it's a vintage piano scroll music that they put in the pianos. So I'm just going to get a thin layer of glue and then just start applying, you know, this piano scroll onto it. And I'll have a little white space, and so I had already cut out some napkin, you know, kind of how I want it to look. I basically just fussy cut around the flowers, and then I'll glue that down. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a little more napkin onto this side just to keep everything balanced. So I'm just going to cut this little piece, and you know, I'm going to just go ahead and apply it on. It's barely hanging on to the napkin anyway. It's just a leftover piece, and then I can always just rip it or cut off, you know, the excess there. So now I thought I'd go ahead and do some stamping. This will help alleviate some of the negative space and just fill it up with some other things. So I've just got some of these different stamps and just applying it on different parts of our card here. I thought I would add some pops of color with this pistachio ink pad. It just brings out some of the colors that are in the napkin and the strip of paper at the bottom where I made the pocket. It just kind of brings some of those colors out. I've also got this ink pad here. I think it's like apricot or marigold. So it gives a nice bright, well, not real bright, but just a nice bold marigold color. And it just kind of helps to liven up our background and take away some of that white space. You know, I just want to fill that up. And then when you tuck some some tags into the pocket, well, then see, that'll fill it up even more. So I think for this page, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm just going to, I think, fold over this tag or, strip of paper and maybe just glue it down. Some of them I've sewn, but this one I thought, well, I'll just glue it down. So I'm just going to fold it where I need to. This will be the flap that we will add glue onto and adhere to our book page. So I'm going to add a strip of glue and glue this down. And I'm going to apply some pressure with my fingertips and running my fingertips up and down to help the glue to spread, to help it set and keep my little flap glued down. And apply glue as needed and then wipe away the excess with a napkin or paper towel. So now I thought I would add a couple of vellum cutouts from the collection. And what I like to do is add a little bit of glue and then just take a paintbrush and paint it so that it has an even layer. And then I just press it down on the paper, just kind of keep my fingers on there, so that it can set without curling back up, because that vellum will curl up on you. And, it can be a little tricky at times. So we've got our simple page done, and you can just paper clip it into your book. Now I thought I would go through, do a flip through, kind of see what we got, what we need to do. So this was a piece that at first I thought I was going to sew it, but then I was like, no, I think I'm just going to glue it in there. So I just brushed a little glue on it, just pressing it down. And then I'll just put that little piece right in there. And then see, I can just stick that right in there so it'll have something. And then for now, I'm going to leave the watercolor plain, the watercolor paper. And I think I'll take one of these receipts and just tuck it behind one of our pockets there. And then I've got this flip out envelope here, but I think I want to cover it up. This was a leftover piece of paper that I had, and so I'm just going to kind of measure it and glue it on. So now I'm going to make my marks where basically where I need to cut to, because you'll have your places up at the top where you want to cut and then down into the middle. So I'm just trying to make some lines. You can use a ruler. I'm just mainly eyeballing it and using this receipt book as kind of a ruler, just to get the points where I'm going to be cutting from and to. So I'm going to go ahead and glue it down, and once I get it glued down, then I will take my scissors and cut around. I'll cut the excess off. So now I'll go ahead and add some tags in here. I'm just flipping through, adding, just filling up some of the spaces. This was a really fun part of the project to work on, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that it has inspired you and helped you. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Thank you so much for watching.